Welcome back. Check the mic. We are reacting to round six wrapping up here of the 2025 NFL draft. While the broadcast has puppy dogs and everything all over the place, we're breaking down the best picks of round six here. Sam, don't forget, we're going to go live right after the draft. We're going to give you the whole recap of the draft going live right after round 7 this evening, right after Mr. Irrelevant. Check the mic, going live. Best picks from round 6, Sam. What stood out to you?
Yeah, there's still some fun players around. Like, there's going to be some fun players round 6 we'll talk about. There's going to be some fun players in round 7. There's going to be some fun undrafted players. Let me start with what I think is one of the best team fit player selections in the entire draft. Ahmed Hassanein was drafted by the Detroit Lions. I suspect, at least in part, just for a speech that Dan Campbell can give about work ethic and grind and doing it the hard way, doing it the right way. There has never been a more Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, Detroit Lions draft pick in the history of the world than Hassanein. Phenomenal story. The first Egyptian to ever be drafted in the NFL. Came over, was like a teenage CrossFit champion or something in Egypt. Came over to America, learned football, has become a defensive lineman, and is like pure hustle and motor and, work ethic, and just loves it. Like, at the combine, he's there getting into jawing matches, shouting matches with coaches running the drills. Him and Dan Campbell are going to have a love affair, I swear to God.
What a fit. What a fit, Hassanein in Detroit. Yeah, the 6th round, it is fun because there's still some players who have some interesting stories, the fits, where they end up landing. Who knows what they end up doing? As we know, as we get to round 6, it's harder to make a more consistent contribution. There were some quarterbacks that went. Hinted at that in the round 5. It was like 4 quarterbacks all the way through in round 6. Kyle McCord to the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's talk about that first. So he goes in battling Tanner McKee, couple big-armed, tall, traditional-looking quarterbacks, old-school throwback, pocket-passing quarterbacks who aren't that mobile, both backing up Jalen Hurts. But, yeah, McCord, I liked a lot of the quarterbacks as developmental types just to see what you can get out of them. So McCord goes to Philadelphia to, see what he can do.
Yeah, we were talking off air about how sort of interesting it is as a strategy. What do you want to do with your backup quarterback? Do you want to get one that sort of looks vaguely like the starter stylistically so that you don't have to change anything when they come in? Or do you try and find something different for a reason? Right now, in particular, I think it makes some sense to find a different style backup if they're athletic and they bring something that you don't have with the starter and something that you can potentially prop up for a week or two if you need them starting. It does strike me as a little unusual to have like an athletic quarterback who so much of the offense is built around in Jalen Hurts, and then get 2 backups that don't bring that to the table at all. But we saw Tanner McKee when he goes out there and executes the offense. It looks pretty good. It looks slightly differently, but it does look good. And Kyle McCord, I think, has an NFL arm, had some tools to work with. He was an intriguing developmental option. So, I can't hate it for that reason. Like, he's definitely a guy that I would want to kick the tires on in this draft because of those physical tools.
Yeah, after I watched McCord, obviously, at Ohio State, left a lot on the table last year. There's a reason why I think they wanted to move on, and he wanted to move on. Goes to Syracuse, and, he looked pretty good at Syracuse, kind of imploded against Pittsburgh. As I was joking with our Pittsburgh friends, they were like, what about Kyle McCord? I was like, he imploded in that stadium. That's going to be a tough one, right? Like, his worst game was at Pitt, 3 pick sixes, 5 total picks. But, yeah, McCord gets back there, rips it up the seam, outside the numbers, makes some really nice throws, and I think he's continuing to progress. And then Pittsburgh does go with a quarterback finally, round 6, pick 185. The guy that replaced Kyle McCord, also interesting, that McCord gets drafted a little bit ahead of Will Howard from Ohio State. And Howard transfers from Kansas State, goes to Ohio State. I think he was feeling his way through a little bit early in the season. They had some, easier competition. He was a little up and down. I thought he just got better as the year went on, and he goes on that nice run to the college football championship. And Will Howard, round 6 here to the Steelers.
He really did. Like, he's got a pretty interesting career trajectory. Obviously, from just focusing on the college level of it, it's amazing, right? It goes transfers to Ohio State, ends up culminating in a national championship victory. It's like the perfect college career. But even in terms of NFL projection, it's the right way as well. He got better basically throughout his college career and was playing his best football at the end into the college football playoffs, culminating with probably the best game of his career in the national title game. And you end up, well, if you go, well, let's project that forward. We've got a guy who has got some physical tools, who is playing really good stuff and was developed by a guy who's been in the NFL in Chip Kelly. Like, there's definitely a way you could project that forward and talk yourself into Will Howard being a really interesting developmental quarterback who's only getting better. And the Steelers are one of those teams, you know, they were consistently linked with Shedeur Sanders because they don't really have a starting quarterback at the moment. It's Mason Rudolph, who clearly, you know, nobody really wants starting. Aaron Rodgers is still out there in the ether debating whether he wants to play football or not, whether he wants to hang around until training camp or not. Like, Will Howard has a pathway towards an opportunity in Pittsburgh.
Maybe as clear as anyone besides maybe Tyler Shough. And I mean, you've got Cam Ward, of course, is going to start, I would assume, in Tennessee. Tyler Shough in New Orleans maybe starts. And then Will Howard competing with Mason Rudolph if Aaron Rodgers retires, right? If Aaron Rodgers retires, Will Howard has an opportunity to start there. So, yeah, he had a really nice season. Like, he's still inconsistent with his accuracy. He'll throw some hospital balls over the middle of the field. Also, you know, I always talked about Cam Ward bouncing back from mistakes. I thought Will Howard did a really nice job in crunch time for Ohio State when they needed him. Had some great pass catchers, of course. But, yeah, he did a really nice job down the stretch. By the way, the Raiders drafted both Tommy Mellott and Cam Miller.
Correct.
The FCS quarterbacks. Mellott might be a slot conversion?
Yeah. Receiver.
Okay. Yeah, so he's a receiver, and then Cam Miller, the North Dakota State quarterback. I see Arif tweeting out the all-fun team of the Raiders. It really is, though. Ashton Genty, Jack Besh, Dante Thornton. So you have Besh at receiver, Dante Thornton in his 4.3 speed at 6'5". JJ Pegues, the defensive tackle who was taking direct snaps all season for Ole Miss. So you got like a fullback Pegues at 320 pounds for Ashton Genty. The two FCS quarterbacks, one of whom is going to move to the slot. This is amazing.
Darian Porter.
For the Raiders. Darian Porter. I mean, just offensively, though, I'm saying it's like wild what they can do here. There was another pick I wanted to highlight. Riley Leonard. So you talked about Kyle McCord being a completely different backup, and now Riley Leonard goes to the Colts, where he's backing up Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Our friend Ben Solak, I will paraphrase his tweet, that Riley Leonard is a perfect fusion of Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, also the Duke pedigree of Daniel Jones. What a mix here. This is the perfect backup for those guys. Another running QB.
He really is. He is like a mashup of Richardson and Daniel Jones. It's a perfect place for him to go. Again, there's a pathway to playing time for him. There's this two-way competition, neither of which is a particularly compelling starting quarterback, regardless of who wins it. There's, you know, on the rail, here's Riley Leonard. Like, there's a pathway for the rookie to actually end up stealing some of that job throughout the season as well. Yeah, like, that's a good place for him to land. Obviously, the local hero as well, given Notre Dame connections, like it makes sense from that in those terms as well. I think it's a great pick for, again, both sides, team's perspective and Leonard's perspective.
Ton of QBs. Graham Mertz goes to the Houston Texans. You know, Mertz was another interesting case. Wisconsin to Florida. He did just enough to kind of hold off DJ Lagway, the future star at Florida, because Mertz was still playing pretty well before he got hurt, season-ending injury at Florida. He takes too many sacks, but, you know, always seems to bounce back as well, completes a high percentage of passes. I just said, I think he lurks around the league for a while as a maybe QB2, maybe more of a QB3. So he goes to the Texans. So a lot of QBs coming off the board here in round 6. Were there any other picks? I got one or two other picks that really stood out to me in round 6.
Yeah, I got a couple. Bal Kone went to the Baltimore Ravens, a cornerback from Western Michigan, 6'1", 190 pounds. He caught my eye for a couple of reasons. He's a fun sort of story. Literally wasn't ranked by recruiting services coming out of high school. You know, a 0-star recruit, went to the JUCO route, then went to Indiana State, and then worked his way from Indiana State to Western Michigan. And he chose Western Michigan in part because he knew they were going to be playing some pretty legit programs in the next couple of years. So he faced Wisconsin, he faced Ohio State, and Ohio State I thought he did really well in. So he sort of went as high as he could in terms of progressing level of competition, he had a couple of really impressive reps against Ohio State, in particular, that showed some serious football IQ and an understanding of zone coverage, of threats, of how offenses work, falling off the initial responsibility, jumping onto the second one. I think he could be a really good zone corner. I think his man coverage is a little bit of a work in progress, but zone coverage, I think he shows some really good stuff.
I was going to pick another Ravens player as well. They got LaJohntay Wester, the little wide receiver from Colorado. As I kept saying, every time I watched Shedeur Sanders, this is the dude stealing the show. He's the guy making the diving catch on the Hail Mary. He's the guy you dump it off in the flat, and he's just jitterbugging past everybody for a touchdown. I know all 4 receivers for Colorado are going to end up playing in the league at least a little bit. Jimmy Horn Jr. also got drafted in this round. Of course, Travis Hunter, LaJohntay Wester. I haven't seen Will Shepherd yet, but as bad as their offensive line was at Colorado, their pass catchers were very, very good. And Wester, he's undersized. Like, he's just your little slot, shifty guy, get the ball, space player, satellite type guy. But man, he made so many plays and just caught my eye every time I was watching Shedeur. And of course, nice pickup for the Ravens. They'll find a way maybe to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah, Jimmy Horn Jr. for the Carolina Panthers is on my list as well. Again, another one of those Colorado receivers, little undersized. Production isn't amazing, but again, I think so much of that is just the way that Colorado offense was working with no offensive line. I've been consistently saying I think Jimmy Horn Jr. is going to be one of the sleepers in this draft. Perfect day 3 pick, a guy with some return ability as well. I think he wins against man and zone. I think he's a vertical threat. I think he can work underneath. That wouldn't shock me in that Carolina receiving core. We're focusing on Tetero and McMillan and what Xavier Legette can do, but Adam Thielen isn't going to go on forever. Jalen Coker is still very much an unknown quantity as an afterthought who surprised everybody last year. I think there's room for Jimmy Horn Jr. to make some noise in that receiving group as well.
Man, the Ravens got Aeneas Peebles in this round as well. Undersized, penetrating defensive tackle with a 91.2 PFF true pass rush grade last year. Got him in round 6. What a round 6 here for the Ravens. They also got a kicker. And I'm not going to give you the kicker analysis on Tyler Loop here, but it's only interesting because we know Justin Tucker facing multiple allegations. And of course, he's been the kicker for the Ravens for quite a while, was the best kicker in the NFL for a while before tapering off the last couple of years. So if this could be their security blanket or a sign that Justin Tucker maybe not with Baltimore going forward, whether it was on field or off field. It was kind of a question for Tucker because he's got the yips for a point last year on the field. So yeah, Ravens 4 picks in the 6th round, 3 of which we all highlighted as we like, and they also draft a kicker here.
I'm going to say I like the Taj Brooks pick by the Cincinnati Bengals as well. Remember, we were talking a lot about they could potentially be a surprise running back team in the first couple of rounds. They could use a guy. To wait and get Taj Brooks in the 6th round, I think is a steal. Taj Brooks has got a crazy body type. He's like 5'9", but he's like 230 pounds. Like, he's built like an absolute brick, thick, stout, but has really nice wiggle and like change of direction at that size. He had a 6.9 second 3-cone time on a 4.06 short shuttle at 5'9" and like 230. That's ridiculous. Change of direction and movement skills. I think he's a good receiver. He broke 98 tackles in 2013. He's really difficult to get to the ground. He made the all-practice team at the Shrine game as well. So like really impressed throughout the week of workouts. Good vision, power, quicks. It wouldn't shock me if he ends up being, a really productive part of that backfield with Chase Brown there as well. Real sort of complementary piece and a guy that could steal some carries.
The only other names I wanted to highlight, Luke Newman, the guard out of Michigan State via Holy Cross. So he transfers from Holy Cross. He was a 2-time FCS All-American, and he took to the Big Ten. And this is one of the best parts about the portal is when you get some of these FCS players. Jalen Travis a couple rounds ago from Iowa State goes from Princeton to Iowa State. You get a year or two sometimes of seeing them against better competition. Jared Verse came via the FCS level. It's happened forever, but it's just it's easier to see to happen, for kids now. And so Newman had 1 year in the Big Ten, moves well. He was talked to Renner about him at the Shrine game. He thought he was one of the better players there. And, you know, the Bears get him in round 6. I think he's got a shot to make it. Moves well in the zone game, moves his feet well in pass protection. So I like Luka Newman as a late pick there for the Bears. And where's the other person I was going to highlight? There's one other. Oh, Antoine Powell-Ryland, the pass rusher from Virginia Tech. It was back-to-back Virginia Tech picks, APR, Powell-Ryland, and then Aeneas Peebles. APR goes to the Eagles, you know, so just adding another pass rush, a little juice off the edge there for the Eagles again, because that's what they do. So nice job by the Eagles there. Didn't love all of their picks today, but that was a good one. Didn't love everything how we did.
You weren't hating on it. You were underwhelmed by some of their day 3 picks.
Yeah, I haven't loved all of them. I saw some other people really like them. Where are the Eagles here? First 2, really nice. Jihad Campbell, Makuba, Ty Robinson with Nebraska in round 4. He's 24, really good athlete. He's an athletic projection, so, you know, I kind of get it. Mac McWilliams, not bad. I mean, it's a good group. They got the guy that reminds me of you every time I see his name, Smail Mundon.
Right.
Mundone. Kyle McCord. It's not bad. It's not a bad draft. A lot of developmental players in there, which, you know, their roster allows. So, all right, that's round 6. Anything else?
No, we're almost through.
That's
finished.
60. We just did 16 minutes on round 6. Amazing. Good job by us. All right, so we're going to be back. You're going to stick with us, everybody, right? We're going to take a break here. We're going to come back right after the draft. We're going to recap the whole thing, all 7 rounds. Recap is tonight, and then division by division starting tomorrow. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the thumbs up on the way out. We'll see you in a little bit, recapping the 2025